Monorail in Kuala Lumpur, is it a failed project or is it the successful public transportation? Monorail has been operated in Kuala Lumpur since the year 2003, 8.6 kilometers in length, passing through the major commercial areas in Kuala Lumpur. But why monorail constructed in the first place during the 2000s, and why there is no more monorail construction in Malaysia in the near future? Let's take a journey on the futuristic transport that is no more futuristic in character and explain the story behind the monorail operation in Malaysia. Monorail is a set of trains that move on a singular track or singular beam, hence the name monorail. Mono means single, single rail. There are two major types of monorail available in the world, which are suspended monorail, which is much more famous in Wuppertal in Germany, and the second type is a straddle monorail, where the train hug the beam throughout the line. That is a kind of a monorail everybody knows. The straddle monorail was developed by a German company, Elweg, in the year 50s, aftermath of the World War II, when steel was expensive and people start to think about the futuristic design. And some of the monorail design were constructed in reality as kind of a futuristic stuff in amusement park, for example, Disneyland, bring you to nowhere from nowhere. According to Lawrence Taylor, European cities refused to construct the monorail due to dense city areas, and there are pre-existing rail system that somehow many of the lines still survive after the war, and as such there is no need to construct a new type of rail in the middle of European cities. Monorail is a medium capacity transit which is suitable with Asian cities such as Kuala Lumpur, which is less denser than the European cities. The construction cost of monorail is lower than the conventional rail, and monorail can handle a higher corner angle rather than the rail, which is much more suitable with the narrow and windy Kuala Lumpur roads. You might ask why there is no tunnel. I will explain in the next chapter. In the era of the 90s, Kuala Lumpur experienced a rapid development together with the economic boom of Asia at that time. Road congestion is worsening, and the main public transportation at that time is the legendary minibus, or if you are Malaysian, maybe you remember BMW. Bus Mini Wilayah. Minibus was the main public transportation in the 90s, and because of the increasing population but the road size cannot be increased, it could not provide reliable and systematic transport. If you ever entering minibus, not by the door but by the window, I know I really have a good memory with the minibus trip, and it is not comfortable at all, stuffed with people, especially during the rush hour. As a result, a new urban rail network is needed to handle the mass movement of people moving from the home to the workplace. Before the construction of the monorail line in Kuala Lumpur, there were already some rail projects going around. For example, the electrification of the KTM line, better known as KTM Commuter, operating in 1995, STAR, or in Malay it's called Sistem Transit Aliran Ringan, or in English is simply called LRT, operated in 1997, and Project Usahasama Transit Ringan Automatic, or Putra, which is the automatic LRT system, which was completed in the year 1999. And that time, authorities realized that the construction cost of tunneling, especially Putra LRT, is super expensive. And why the tunneling part of Kuala Lumpur is super challenging. The cost of underground tunneling in Kuala Lumpur is ridiculously expensive, and government tried to find a new alternative mode of transportation instead of building a new tunnel underneath. There are some issues that deems monorail much more suitable in Kuala Lumpur rather than conventional rails that moves underground. The first issue is the density. Malaysians prefer to live in the landed houses instead of apartments, and which makes this density especially in the suburban areas less dense than the European cities or Japanese cities or even in the neighboring Singapore. The cost of construction conventional rail is so expensive, and the only remnant of the rail network in Malaysia at that time is whatever the rail that British left before the independence of Malaya and later the Federation of Malaysia. So such the existing rail network did not cover all the new cities and suburban areas that growing over time, unlike the place in Europe where there are already dense rail network. And the third issue is the soil underneath Kuala Lumpur. The soil underneath the downtown Kuala Lumpur consists of the limestone, specifically known as a Canny Hill limestone, karst limestone, and it makes a tunneling nightmare. If there is any place to dig a tunnel across the globe, Kuala Lumpur is probably the last place that the tunneling should be constructed. According to the study by Govindasamy and Singh, soft limestone land together with the hollow and cavities filled with air and water makes tunneling super difficult. Like kind of this bread, for example, this has a lot of a cavity and air between, but there also the hard part in beneath. Tunneling in this type of soil is not a good thing because when the hole is constructed, it can collapse really quickly. And such monorail is be chosen because it has a medium capacity, which makes much more sense in the term of cost and also the capacity and also the density of the population surrounding it. Unlike the like the MRT or the metro system, which is much more expensive. Lower density means fewer people are living around. And the next thing is the lowest cost because it's the elevation and no need for tunneling underneath the city. And monorail, let's be honest, it looks really cool and looks really better, especially when you are going for the MACD in Bukit Bintang area and there is one monorail train passing through. It is really cool and a tourist attraction of its own. And because of the awesome looking futuristic train in Kuala Lumpur, several other major cities in Malaysia also want to have their own monorail system. Similar problems with Kuala Lumpur, road congestion and increasing number of population, people commuting from home to work. There was some preliminary works to construct a brand new monorail line in Putrajaya in the year 2003 and 2004. There are also some proposal to construct a Penang monorail, and also there are some interest to construct a monorail in Johor Bahru down in the South Peninsula. But if you talking about Melaka Monorail, just pretend it did not exist because Melaka Monorail is much more like amusement ride rather than a serious transportation system. That However, monorail project seemed to be really problematic from the start. The government gave the approval to construct monorail in the year 1990 and the construction started a year later in 1991, but due to high cost and financing problem, the project was postponed until the year 1997. At that time, monorail in Kuala Lumpur was supposed to use imported Japanese Hitachi monorail trains, the similar train that been used in Tokyo Monorail, a really successful line connecting Yamanote line in the nearby the downtown cities of Tokyo to the Haneda Airport. But something interesting happened in year 1997. The Asian financial crisis makes the all construction of monorail in Kuala Lumpur stop. And due to depreciation of ringgit, as such the construction of monorail seems to be more expensive than before, and importing a train from Japan is no longer a viable option. As such, a local company, Skomi Berhad, took over the project, the rail, and also making its own monorail trains in Rawang, Selangor. At last, after the long postponed financial issues, global financial crisis, finally KL Monorail has been opened to the public on the 31st of August 2003. However, the bad luck of monorail didn't end there. The ridership on the early years of monorail operation is way below the forecast despite passing through the major commercial areas such as Bukit Bintang and Sultan Ismail. And because of financial hardship, the planned extension from Tun Sambatan to Kampung Pasir never be realized. The reason number 1, frequency. The train arrives every 15 minutes. Imagine waiting for a train every 15 minutes in the hot and humid weather. Monorail station is so hot. People who ride the monorail on an everyday basis to work or occasionally go to the Bukit Bintang or Imbi know how hot it is. And it is so uncomfortable to wait in the monorail station because of the design that traps the heat. The second reason is that the cost of operation of monorail is higher than the revenue itself. The revenue cost, the ticket, is not enough to cover the cost of operation. Even when the heavy advertisement in the stations and also the brand name rights, the revenue simply couldn't enough to sustain the operation, which is rising every year. There is a lack of connectivity with the monorail line and other mode of transportation, for example bus and also LRT. For example, the monorail station of KL Central is not actually located in the terminal building where all the stations are located in a single roof. In fact, the monorail station of KL Central is located about 100 meters away from the station. So if you disembark at the KL Central monorail station, you will find out you need to walk across a shopping mall, New Central, just to go passing through just to go to the actual station itself. Such the issue of the lack of bus internet connectivity, there is a very few bus line passing through the station, and up until 2012 there was no direct connection with the LRT line itself. There is no interchangeability, which means that you can go from one monorail to LRT station without any tapping in and out. Monorail travel is actually more expensive than the LRT based on the distance. And because of this, all this kind of hardship, plan to construct monorail lines in Penang and also in Johor Bahru was scrapped. And the construction of Putrajaya monorail, which is actually almost realizing on, there is a monorail bridge in the middle of Putrajaya, and there is also a provision of monorail station in Putrajaya Central. The construction is there, but suddenly due to financial reason, the construction of the Putrajaya monorail stopped. And even if Putrajaya monorail was completed, it will be marred by the issue of the operation cost and also the maintenance. According to one paper of research by Alias, Wan Yusoff and Abdul Samad, the operation cost of Putrajaya monorail will be more than the revenue of the ticket and also the advertisement. It is hypothesized in the research that even if the ticket costs RM7.50, that is not enough to cover the operation cost. RM7.50 is equal to the lunch price of Malaysian in the lunchtime, and RM7.50 in the public transportation ticket. If you add 3 more ringgit, you can take a bus from Kuala Lumpur to Malacca, 120 kilometers. And because of all these financial hardship and difficulties to pay back the loan, the operation of KL Monorail was took over by Rapid KL, a government-owned public transportation company in the year 2007, and makes an integration with the LRT line much possible. And because of all these financial difficulties, intervention, and also lack of interconnectivity with other modes of transportation, there were less and less interest to construct a new monorail line or even to extend the already constructed line. And such, the later project of public transportation in Kuala Lumpur just simply use a conventional rail. For example, the new MRT project between Kajang and Sungai Buloh, and the newly constructed line from Sungai Buloh to Putrajaya, which is under construction right now, and also the LRT Klang, is just simply using available technology of conventional rail. Despite the cost, okay, I talked earlier about the tunneling issue. The tunneling is still expensive as before, but with the advance of technology and deep, better understanding of the soil underneath, so the tunneling is much more manageable, and it's still expensive. The soil is look like this with the cavity. However, before the tunneling machine could proceed, they need to fill up all the cavity first. For example, like this one. So you can see when all the cavities, for example air and water, were filled up with concrete, it will be much more manageable, and it is. So despite the extremely high cost and also the extremely challenging tunneling, why does the government still insist on building a conventional rail underground? Reason number one, underground station actually much more comfortable than the super hot and humid elevated monorail station, which not designed with the Malaysian weather on mind. Underground stations are more comfortable because they are sheltered from the hot humid weather outside. It has a air conditioning inside, and based on the previous construction, for example in the KLCC station, it proved really popular because much more comfortable waiting in the aircon rather than waiting outside in the hot and humid weather. Reason number two, constructing the MRT and also the new LRT line underground makes a better city landscape. It is hidden from the view and nobody need to look at the ugly concrete pillars in the middle of the road. And the reason number three is that when you put the train underground, nobody can hear the train noise. But if you put the train up in the elevated line, everyone can see and hear and smell. Sometimes the train brakes because it noise sometimes can be a really noisy because the train will operated until 12 in the midnight. Other than the comfort and aesthetic of the underground tunneling, there are also the reason why the conventional rail wins over monorail. The operation speed of a conventional rail, for example LRT and MRT trains, are about 80 kilometers per hour. Quite reasonable. Compare that with the top operation speed of monorail, which is 60 kilometers per hour. And also adding trains during the peak hour is much more easier using conventional rail because of the switches compared with the monorail system, which is only consists of the double line without any switch between KL Central and also Titiwangsa, 8.6 km long. If there is any broken train or anything, something happen in the one of the train or one of the line, the whole line need to be shut down, or only one half, which is really not optimized at all. With the progress of time and technology, actually monorail is getting better and better. It is no longer like a type of being used like in the KL Monorail. For example, the city of Sao Paulo and Cairo constructing a brand new monorail lines due to its lower capacity and also lower cost, and also somehow the modern country of South Korea constructed a monorail line in Daegu city, which is the third largest city in Korea. They decide to go crazy and construct monorail because of the cost and the soil. According to the Peter Timan, there is a new interest of monorail after the development of Putrajaya Innovia 3000. It is more reliable and the operation is fully automatic. Bear in mind, KL Monorail is manually driven and prone to delays and also human errors. With the renewal interest of constructing monorail line, actually there is a proposal to rejuvenate the project of Putrajaya Monorail because reason earlier road congestion and more people are commuting from home to work. Putrajaya road, even though it's much bigger than the standard Malaysian roads, is also prone to congestion. As such, the suggestion and proposal to rejuvenate Putrajaya Monorail. As a conclusion, KL Monorail is a successfully run failing public transportation. It is a successful and also a fail at the same time. Actually, I really enjoy riding a monorail every time I have a chance to have a trip, especially to Bukit Bintang. The issue of the monorail services are mainly to the political reasons and also the management issues, lack of interconnectivity, lack of bus services, and because of the unwillingness of anyone to develop a new type of monorail which much more reliable and much more suitable for other Malaysian cities which might more smaller and such. After the introduction of 4-car monorail, which is a model of Sukhumvit Sutra, and interesting enough, the company that makes the monorail train in Kuala Lumpur is no longer exist. Previously, connectivity was an issue, and after KL Monorail was overtaken by Prasarana, which is the parent company of Rapid KL, the interconnectivity has been improved somehow, and he's a better connection with the other rail lines, especially in the Hang Tuah station and also in Titiwangsa station. But it doesn't mean that monorail will be a choice for future types of the rapid transit services, because there is a lower cost of rapid transit, which is bus rapid transit, which is cheaper to build and much more suitable with Malaysian cities. And do bear in mind that sometimes the government want to save some money. If you want to ride a monorail in Kuala Lumpur, you can embark from any 11 stations throughout its system in downtown Kuala Lumpur. You can take the monorail from popular stations, for example KL Central, which is really near with the other major rail lines, Bukit Bintang station, which is a popular shopping destination. It is nearby with the new MRT station of Bukit Bintang also, and the fare depend on how far you go between those stations. When you have a chance to take a monorail, please make sure to look around and see the beautiful scenery of Kuala Lumpur skylines. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next episode.